And we're back with part 2 of our book review of Iron Gold, the 4th book in the Red Rising series. Did that a lot better the second time.
Yeah.
I fucked up the record the first time we tried this, so past 8 minutes I've just been
and the intro.
Silently gesturing.
In case you forgot.
Yeah. It's true.
Yep.
But now it looks like I did the intro perfect, except I just told everyone.
I should have kept my part and then just got you to try and map your parts into it.
Just like
that would have been funny.
Imitate what I was talking to have the most unnatural conversation for the first 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, last time when we did this, we talked in general about the book, some of the overarching differences, the time skip, and how there are like 4 characters now. And then we decided to talk about the characters in clusters. So we talked about Darrow last time. This time, we got the other 3 to get through. So just going to get right into it with our least favorite guy, Lysander Owloon. Which, I don't know, we're going to make fun of him again for a couple minutes?
No, I'm not. I don't have it in me. I don't.
All right, I'll speed run through what we already talked about. We pick up with him 10 years later. He's with Cassius. They're out in the belt. Cassius is on like a mission to, I don't know, help the helpless and be Robin Hood and protect people from pirates and yada yada. They find a ship that's being attacked by Obsidian pirates. They board it. They try to rescue some people on there. But Lysander finds out there's a gold passenger, and he's still caught up into golds have to stick together. And we can't leave one of our own people behind. And so he waits till the elevator door is about to close and runs back into the ship to save the person. Said person, when they wake up, like punch him in the stomach and take his razor and go after the Obsidians to, get revenge. And then that, because he took so long to do that, him and the gold passenger don't get back until the Obsidians have already noticed him, and now they're chasing him. The ship can't outrun him. Cassius wants to turn and fight them and capture their ship. But Lysander's like, no, I talked to the gold person before she passed out. She says there's help on this asteroid over here. They go there, and on that asteroid, it turns out it's golds from the Rim Dominion, the new society that broke off when Darrow helped them defeat Roke out in the belt in book 3, I think. And yeah, she turns out to be the daughter of the current sovereign that's out there, whose name I'm struggling to remember. I was hoping by now I would remember it.
What was the last name?
Ra. Yeah. I remember his wife's name. Her name's Dido, but I don't remember his...
It's
Romulus.
Even more so... Romulus, yes.
Romulus Al
Because
Ra.
they were like, the famous tale of Romulus and Dido. The star-crossed lovers. She was just a peasant and he... Yeah.
I will say, in these chapters, one thing that I kept getting confused by with Romulus and Dido... No, with Dido in particular... I kept getting her mixed up with her son, which is named or it's another D name that sounds very similar to hers, and I kept getting the two of them confused. So when they're talking about something she was doing, I was picturing her son doing it.
Right. I'm not gonna lie, most of the Lysander scenes I kind of drifted a bit.
Yeah.
I got the gist of it. I knew who Lysander was and Cassius was.
Yeah.
And everyone else is fairly unimportant.
Well, a good chunk of them die when Cassius gets into the... Anyway, the thing that carried me through the Lysander chapters was finding out more about the lore of the Rim, like Saturn and Jupiter, and how their culture is different from the core culture. Because they're like this weird, I don't know, Spartan samurai kind of people. Like they've got very plain and austere buildings, or plain buildings without any frivolity to it. It's kind of like
a bit more communist.
Yeah, I was actually
very communist.
I was thinking about this because this is one of the first thing I wrote down in my notes when I wanted to talk about this was you get an image of what Romulus is trying to do. He's trying to preserve... You still get the society with the golds on top and the strict hierarchy, but he's sort of... and I didn't think communism. I was thinking it was more like feudalism, where everyone has their place in the feudal hierarchy, and they stick to it, but they're all working together towards one goal.
I would say that I don't know, the core is more like the west, and the rim is more like the east.
Yeah, well, it's why I think they actually mentioned that the original settlers of the rim were like the Golds were from like Japan and South Africa, like those. So I guess that's why how they explain their accents, because they do have that kind of South African accent.
South African.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting. He's trying to prevent like revolutions out there by essentially reforming the society, but keeping the same basic concept. But he's like, educating everyone because they say that they were phasing out the Obsidian's Norse gods in one of the chapters too, and they're trying to, teach them to be just part of the whole. Anyway,
they're putting them onto Twitch instead now.
So when they realize that ship is there's an ant crawling across my ceiling. Sorry, I just looked up and I saw.
You didn't even break in that sentence. That was what made it great.
So when they realize this is going to happen, and because this family hates Cassius because they think he killed one of their children, when it was actually Octavia, Lysander's mother, that did it. He uses like some kind of a face thing to alter his face to make him look...
Another flesh mark, same as she used.
Well, yeah, this one seemed like it was described a little bit more extreme, like it shot needles into his face. Sorry, I've got something gross dripping down the back of my throat. Allergies.
Lovely.
Allergies
Anyway.
are amazing, aren't they? So if you hear me coughing, and that's why.
So they drink some polyjuice potion.
Yeah, and then Cassius becomes I don't remember what the fake names they were.
Older farm boy.
Yeah. And they pretend to be merchants.
Brothers.
Yeah, brothers. Castor Aljanus was one of the names they used. Janus was the last name they used. Don't remember the other one. Sorry.
Yeah.
It just popped into my head.
I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah, so they keep up that ruse for a while. They get to Romulus, and Romulus knows that his daughter, the gold that they saved, disobeyed his orders, went into the core on her mother's request to try and find some kind of evidence or something. What are you looking?
Is that coming through?
What? No.
Okay, good. Sorry.
What? Was it a dog?
My PC's having a grumble.
Yeah, it's just you look down and it's like, what? Did a dog come and visit? Anyway.
It's like when you go down a gear, but you're still trying to go at the same speed, but the engine is sounding a lot more... Sorry, anyway.
And yeah, so Romulus knows that she did it. He knows it's treason if he reveals it to the rest of his court. So instead of having his daughter go to court, he's like, nope, I'm trapping you in this facility. You can't go anywhere. You're going to be taken care
House
of.
arrest.
Yeah, essentially. Meanwhile, but then his wife, Dido, comes in, guns blazing, with like a bunch of people in armor, and she actually commits treason. Does a little bit of a coup d'etat on her husband there, because through Lysander's chapters you find out that she doesn't believe the story that Roke killed the Dox, which he didn't. Darrow did, but there's no witnesses for that. So she sent her daughter out to find evidence of it, because she wants to go to war with the core and take back the full society.
Which, by the way, everyone on that super cruiser was aware of what happened, and none of them gave it away. You could torture any one of those oranges, and they would fucking tell you, because as much as they enjoyed not being flushed out into space, that's been and gone now.
Yeah.
Like,
they got bills.
Thousands of people on that ship that were aware of what happened, and no one leaked it.
Yeah, it is a bit of a stretch, but there you are. Anyway, so there's a bit of a duel happening where Romulus's son, starts hacking into some of the forces that Dido's got with her. Eventually, Romulus is like, we're wasting our blood, stop this, and he agrees to go with her.
Mm-hmm.
So they get back to the court, and this is where Cassius and Lysander have a little bit of a back and forth, because they know they're being watched, and they're still trying to play up their whole we're just innocent merchants angle to try and make it out of there alive.
And it becomes very obvious that Lysander is apparently into people beating him up and taking his stuff.
Yeah,
because he's just infatuated by that girl.
He is. She shows
it's really fucking frustrating.
But I think Lysander probably has a little bit of a complex. I mean, think about the women he was raised around. There was his mother Octavia, and then there was Aja.
Yeah, but Aja was shown to be very, very nice and sweet to him.
To him, yeah. But she was also the most brutal, powerful swordsman in Octavia's employ.
All I'm saying is Cassius should have slapped him.
Yeah. He should have.
Several times.
He should have.
Throughout the course.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping for in Book 5. Lysander, gets the stupid slapped out of him.
Well, yeah. Sorry, go on.
Anyway, so there's it's also clear that there's kind of a brewing falling out between Lysander and Cassius, despite the fact they've kind of been effectively brothers for the last 10 years from the way it's described. There was one thing I wanted to bring up here, because it was a point because we were talking about where all the colors fit into the hierarchy and what their functions are. Lysander makes an interesting point when he's talking to Cassius, because there are pinks in the suite for them to,
indulge. Yes.
Yeah, and he makes a point that all of the other colors serve a specific purpose that's necessary. Like the reds are like miners, right? And they do the manual labor. The browns are like janitorial and cleaning staff. The orange are technicians. They're all things that you
aren't technically necessary, because people could just clean up after themselves.
That's true. That is true. But in his words, and I'm not sure I agree with this 100%, but in his words, the pinks are basically just there to satisfy the perversions of their masters. And I don't think that's 100% true, because there are other pinks that act as stewards, the one Darrow had. What's her name? The older one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But that was a personal assistant, which was... I mean, at the end of the day, the leader, the admiral of a starship, could tell any fucking person to do whatever he wants to do, and they'd do it. It's she wasn't necessary. She was there as his personal fuck toy, plus just the person you naturally ask to do things.
We should clarify. Darrow makes a point that he never actually indulges.
Well, no, Darrow obviously didn't, but Darrow was his whole thing was he was against that kind of thing.
Yeah. I don't know if it was an interesting...
I bet Rope fucked his pink. Because...
Oh, yeah, because she's the one that betrays him, isn't she?
Yeah, because he was like, oh...
How could you?
Too. Even you betrayed me.
Et tu, Barbie?
Exactly. It's very Caesar-esque.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was just it was one line, and it stuck in my head when I went through that section again, and so I wanted to bring it up. But yes, so from there we get on to what Cassius's badass final moment, and I wish there was a different person reading the chapter, because it's such an awesome scene from Cassius.
It is. You know what? Yeah, it is. It is.
Because what happens is it's they have an audience with Dido, and she reveals that actually I know it's you. I've known it's you all along, because her daughter, when she hid her disc with the evidence, she hid it in Lysander's razor, which she noticed had Cassius's family motifs on it.
Why the fuck don't they take Lysander's flesh mask off there and then?
Lysander isn't wearing one. because he doesn't have a scar. There's nothing to conceal.
So they don't recognize the son of the sovereign.
I guess not, because he was like 10.
That's stupid. That's fucking stupid.
I admit it's a bit of a contrivance, but anyway, they explain it away as it was 10 years ago. He was a kid. No one's going to recognize him. So, but I agree. It's a little bit contrived. Anyway, so because they know it's Cassius and because they still think that he murked one of the kids in the family, they have a trial by combat, essentially, what they call the bleeding place. And yeah, it's essentially like a dueling circle.
A gladiatorial ring.
And this was something I found kind of interesting that I don't think they really elaborated on too much in the first trilogy, was that the razor that's used by the Rim people is different than the Core. They have a hasta. Yeah. And they instead of having a shield, they have a short blade on the other hand.
They do still have those...
Aegis. Yeah, they have them, but they don't... Like, in the duel, if I remember right, the person who's fighting Cassius just has a hasta and a short blade.
Yeah, but they give Cassius a shield, which is a bit generous, I thought, but there you go. Yeah, like, it really made me think of... This is going to sound weebish as fuck, but Renji's sword from Bleach.
Yep.
Like, that's what I was picturing, especially with the end part where it's like got that extra hook over it.
Yeah, because it turns into like a whip, and I think they say it's like when it's actually solid, it's 2 meters long, so it's more of a lance than a sword. Yeah. Anyway, so Cassius, manages to come out on top and kills the guy, and then he does his he has a few, like, every time he beats somebody or when he's announcing himself, he goes by his full name. He's like, "Yo, I am Cassius whatever
Bologna.
Bologna, thank you.
And my honor is intact," or something like that.
Yeah. And what?
Well, he does Cassius au Bologna, morning, night, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, blah blah blah, and my honor is intact.
And you know what? I'm glad that this is how. Spoiler alert. I mean, Cassius dies, but he doesn't lose. That's the thing. He goes through, and every time he beats one of the people sent against him,
kills them. By the way,
he kills them. He straight up kills them. Every time he kills one of them, the mother Dido just sends another one in after him, and all
the cousins.
He kills like 8 or 9 of them, and then finally she sends in her daughter, who jumps down basically to finish him off, because at this point he's bleeding profusely. He's leaning on like one of the discarded hostas just to stand up.
She's like the fastest member of their entire society or something like that. Yeah. She had some kind of accolade where it was like she was just insanely fast.
Yeah. And but right before this is about to happen, Lysander's like, "No, I can't let him go down like this. I know he wants to die. I know he's going to think this is a betrayal." But he jumps down there and he announces who he is, and it just...
Cassius specifically said before all of this, "I don't care if I die. I really, really fucking care if you announce who you are. That's going to really piss me off."
Yeah, and so Cassius, there's like a look of betrayal in his eyes, but Lysander thinks at this point, if I remember his mental justification for it is like, it's my responsibility to put the society back together and fix this. So that happens, and what that section ends. So Cassius leaves the ring undefeated, but bleeding profusely, and then he passes away basically from like blood loss. Like they just can't bring him back. And
also, he jumps into the arena. He's like, "Yeah, I am the son of Olun," and they're all just like, "Oh my god! Well, he must be telling the truth."
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
It's like did no DNA verification or anything like that. You guys have all this technology.
he just lets them take Cassius off to heal him off screen.
Yeah, and then he dies off screen.
I don't either. He's not dead. He's being kept in a prison cell somewhere.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Or they fucking slit his throat the moment that he got off screen.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That might be. I just assumed that, like, oh, they're so honorable, they wouldn't do that. But
Dido certainly isn't.
no, yeah, but she's from Venus.
Racism in a fictional world? Those fucking Venetians.
It's funny how often.
Oh wait, that's Venice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Venusians is what they call them in the book. Yeah. It's funny how often like that happens. Just as an aside in video games, like StarCraft 2. Like I'm a Zerg player, and filthy Terran players. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Protoss and their beep boops. Anyway. Yeah. So there's a couple things that happen. This is kind of at the end of Lysander's arc now, in this book at least. I think the grandmother, Romulus's mother, she tries to conspire with Lysander to get him to free Romulus and rally with her other daughter and basically undo the coup. But Lysander's like, no, I've committed to this path. I want us to go to war with the core, and I want us to mend things and bring the society back together.
So he stabs her in the back within minutes.
Yeah. Metaphorically.
No,
he stabs her assistant in the leg. She lives.
It's not a metaphor, though. He does stab her in the back.
What I'm saying is he doesn't physically put a blade into her. You have to clarify in these books, because they do a lot of stabbing.
He kind of does. Because his actions meant that she's getting stabbed.
That's a fair point. Anyway, so after he reveals all this to Dido, she thanks him and basically is still kind of questioning his motives and is like, well, it's not going to be only for me to decide your fate, because it turns out that her conspiring ass has the plan that she's going to accuse her husband of negligence in wartime by letting the docks get destroyed. But since he didn't know about it, then she's gonna like take over as acting sovereign and take him as a co-sovereign, and as husband and wife, like two co-consuls, they will ride into the core and kick ass.
Yeah.
It does not go the way she planned, because her husband is actually a very honorable person, I'd say, because when they have the trial, all this happens, and then the Olympic Knights apparently have the power to bring additional charges, and so they bring the charge of treason and ask him how he pleads, yes or no. And they're not allowed to bring evidence. He can just say yes or no.
It wasn't the Olympic Knights.
It was.
Nope, it was the Whites.
I thought the Olympic Knights did it through the White.
No.
They're allowed to bring additional charges. The White announced it, though.
The Olympic Knights were, I think, basically behind Romulus primarily, I think, and also the others were behind Dido. No, the blind girl stands up with the bell and then whispers to one of the Olympic Knights, and then the Olympic Knights are like, well, it's part of the compact. We
you have
can't
to do
say no to that.
Interesting. So, okay, maybe I may have misunderstood that, because that's another section I haven't reread, and just like you with the Lysander chapters, it's easy to just completely zone out. Regardless, the result is the same. He has the charge of treason given against him. They're not allowed to bring evidence against him, but he just has to say yes or no if he knew about Darrow destroying the docks.
Yeah.
And to everyone, to his wife's shock, he's like, yes, I knew. And he reveals that at one point another informant brought the same information to him, and he killed that informant to keep it private because he knew that a war with the core would devastate them, and they weren't ready for it. But he knew they'd be honor bound to do it. And so he gets convicted of treason and sentenced to death. And He does die in a fairly badass way.
Yeah, that was the only other scene that I remembered from when I last read it. I don't know why that scene in particular stuck out so much to me. Maybe because I was like, I don't know. You really wanted him to make it.
You did, yeah.
Because he did it in a very honourable way, and he went out like a champ. You wanted him to properly go out like a champ, and he didn't.
Yeah. So yeah, Romulus, the way they execute the the people, the nobles on this planet is there's a tomb, like up on a hill out away from the protective domes on Io. So freezing temperatures, massive radiation, no real breathable air, or at least it's so thin that it's mostly poisonous. And you have to walk. I think it's like they say it's a couple kilometers to this thing.
80 steps, I think it was.
Yeah, 80. Is it 80 steps that he?
Because they were counting the steps.
Ah, you're right. Yeah, no, you're right. Anyway, so
if you've seen the Chronicles of Riddick, which is the second one in the Riddick series, and you remember the person who turns out to be the only other Furion left in existence, the way he dies by walking out of the hangar into the rays of the sun, and he's just walking and then stumbles in the heat and the wind, and then eventually just crumples and burns into a pile of ash. That's basically what I had in mind, except cold, not hot.
Yeah. They do describe it as a desert, and he almost makes it. I think they say he's like 4 steps away, and then he trips.
There's a temple, by the way.
Yeah, there's a temple that he's trying to get to, and apparently only 4 of their ancestors have ever made it there. And keep in mind, this guy has 1 arm. So once he trips and goes down, he can't make it back up, and he gets that close.
And so, either way, he doesn't get to live.
No.
But he gets to be in a nice catacomb, I guess, if he does make it.
Yeah, he gets to go out like a boss. And it's considered, again, in the cult. This is the other thing I still keep saying this. I loved learning about the Rim culture, and I thought that was a cool aspect of it. It has and you could see the the Japan influence out of that, because it has the same vibes as seppuku.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's pretty much all for Lysander. Because at this point, the Rim is going to war. He requests to go with them and be a part of it. It is granted, and I think when the book ends from his perspective, the Rim is getting ready to go to war, or to go to the core in some capacity. I don't remember if they're prepping for war, or if they're prepping to go in there and do something. But it's not important. Now we get to the 2 characters that we have left that are both, I think, positive additions to the story.
They are the best streams.
Yeah. I still liked the Darrow bits, but you're right. His arc in this book is very, like, it's his low point. Hopefully before he picks back up.
Yeah.
But these 2 are just new and interesting. I, in particular, loved all of Lyria's sections. Like, her chapters were just awesome to read once I got used to the new voice.
Do you want to power through the first part of it then, like, really fast? Because we basically already started.
We've already talked about it pretty much. So Ephraim, mercenary, gray, used to be part of the Rising, left in disgust. Former husband of Holiday's brother Trig. Lyria, taken out of a mine. She was a Gamma. The Gammas are hated because they got all the cool stuff when they were in the mines. The Red Hand, led by what's heavily implied to be Dancer's old girlfriend from the...
We still can't remember the name of.
We still can't remember the name of. Her family gets killed, all but her little brother. No, her nephew. And the Telemanus, Cavax, manages... She saves him, and then he agrees to take her and her brother onto his staff and take them back to Luna with him. And meanwhile, Ephraim, he stole some shit, find out it's actually Syndicate shit that he stole, and the Syndicate were using it as a test to kind of recruit him. So that's the setup for both of these characters in the early stages before they start to really synergize. I'm sorry.
They never synergize. Yeah. They never synergize.
No one can see what we're meshing our fingers. It's just maybe we should have had the cameras for these ones. Anyway, yeah. So the Syndicate wants they tell Ephraim what they want him to steal, but it's not revealed.
By the way, in case it hasn't been said already, the Syndicate are the Mafia.
Yeah, basically and it's implied that they're all over the core. So. They tell Ephraim what they want him to steal, but the reader doesn't hear what they want him to steal. But they have a month, so he's got to do all this prep work. Lyria's chapters in this early bit involve mostly, and again, from a lore perspective, I love. I accidentally stopped the recording. It's okay. I literally stopped it 2 seconds ago. It's recording again.
Good.
Nope, no worries. I noticed it right away. Sorry.
Lyria.
I loved Lyria's chapters because it gave a fresh perspective on what it's like living on kind of the high red end of things. So not in the mines where you're basically just reds and grays, but when you're like how completely intimidating and different all the other colors look to her. Like when she's just hanging out at like a garden party where the Sovereign, Cavex, Victra, Theodora, that's Darrow's Pink's name, Theodora. When they're all like talking about politics and what's going on and the Senate and everything, and she's just like basically a mouse trying not to be seen. Oh, and Lyria's job is to take care of Cavex's pet fox, Socrates. Which
yes, that was the job that was assigned. I feel like that was kind of almost a fan service thing. I think everyone loved Socrates in the original books. And
they've got some interesting lore about him. Apparently Socrates is like 700 years old because they keep cloning him.
Yeah.
And I think this is another thing that wasn't confirmed in this book, but I'm hoping they'll get to it in the next one. I think this is another piece of like big foreshadowing. Socrates always goes crazy and tries to attack the birds whenever they're around. I think the birds are spy drones.
That's the most tin hat theory I've heard from you.
Well, all I'm saying is like Socrates is clearly very intelligent and very loyal to Cavex. And then they make a point in the book of talking about how these birds are always around when there's important discussions happening, and they're always just sitting. They do. Because on my second listen of the book, I paid close attention because I remember wondering about it the first time. And just the way that they're kind of focused on those birds, and that Socrates just goes nuts whenever they're around.
Why would anyone be interested in the chemical makeup of Socrates' shite?
Well, it's not just that, but there's also the... I think it's more like they're spying on the whole Telemanus estate. And like intel gathering. I
think they're just because they do specifically say they are a loon bird.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You wouldn't have a drone that looked like a non-native species because that would give it away.
Right. So you think not all of them are drones, but some of them are drones. You're a very tin hat here, my dude.
This is my second conspiracy theory of Iron Gold. The first one is that Tongueless is actually the Jackal, if you remember from part 1.
Yeah.
And now my second...
Which I kind of disproved, but yeah.
I wouldn't say you disproved it.
I think he's had a hand sewn on and then changed his appearance?
No, I think his sister did. I think she couldn't bring herself to kill her family, and so instead she disguised him as an obsidian and hid him away in Deepgrave. That's my... Again, both of these might be crazy tin hat conspiracy theories about the book, but I just want to see what they do, because I feel like they're focusing on the details too much with these things for it not to mean something. It's got to mean something, Blue. It's got to be real. The moon was fake.
Okay, go on.
Oh god. Anyway, yeah. So where these two storylines intersect is in some of the prep work for the job that Ephraim has. So Lyria goes into town at one point. She's so excited to see the big city. She's got a pass. She wants
Should
to
talk about the Duke of Hands first, because technically that comes first.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Well, so the syndicate contact that gives Ephraim the job is a pink called the Duke of Hands. The syndicate, it's described, has a queen and then 4 dukes under her. 4 or 5 dukes. I don't remember how many
Recently
dukes.
appointed, there was an overthrow of the old syndicate, which was under the rule of the last queen.
Yeah, and this all happened like during the chaos after the moon was kind of blown apart in the war and then rebuilt. And so new power is taken over.
Which I can safely say this because I know it's not true now, but when I read it through the first time, I don't know, I think I had a theory in my mind when I read it through the first time. And that turned out not to be true, but I remember the theory and not what actually happened. So the whole time I was reading it, I was like... At first I thought it was, Victra's in control of the mafia.
Yeah.
And then I was like, hang on a second, they talk about an obsidian. Maybe it was Sephi that was in control of it.
So do you think it... Do you not think that now? Because I was about to suggest that maybe the obsidian is Sephi.
I was thinking that, and then Then I got to the scene where Pax and the girl literally see the obsidian's face in the hollow screen near the end, and I mean, Sephi could be controlling an obsidian, which is saying her stuff. So yes, but it could still be on the that is a tin hat.
But I don't think they actually see her real face. I think that the hollow they get in the shuttle at the very end is like, kind of either distorted or disguised in some... I mean, come on, people have worn fake faces so often in these storylines. That could be that too.
Yeah, but it'd be
a bit contrived, maybe.
Yeah.
A bit like a Scooby-Doo villain that pulls off the face at the end. It's Old Man Winters. Anyway.
It's Uncle Dan!
Oh my god, it's the fucking Gray from the first book. I'd be surprised if that guy's still alive. So Duke of Hands is a pink who is the syndicate boss that has been testing and hiring Ephraim.
Yes.
And so he's the one that gives him the job.
Cutting the hands off of his enemies.
Yes.
With a bone saw.
We did talk about this briefly last time, how Ephraim's final test for the syndicate was to, for him not to snitch when they threatened to cut his hand off.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, so Ephraim's got the job. Lyria is so excited to go into the big city. And what happens on her first day? She gets accused of being a pickpocket and is about to get hauled away by a couple Greys because some rich gold lady was like, "Oh, the little street urchin stole my bracelet." Something like that. And what you find out later is Ephraim in disguise kind of strolls up in his getup as Philippe, a bit of a eccentric old former Grey persona that he's put on. And he chats up the police officer there and gets him to let Lyria go by pretending to be her.
Barely a persona, to be fair.
Yeah, I think he's wearing like a mask and he talks in a little bit of a foppish accent, but he doesn't change too much about himself. He still has the same backstory of being a Grey, of being in the Legions, and... Anyway. So he hits it off with Lyria, and basically he's trying to make inroads with her to manipulate her. And he's playing a con man to try and get in her good graces because she has access to the Telemanus estate. And over the course of a couple times, it's also revealed that Lyria is kind of isolated with everyone else. Like, she can really only get along with the red dock workers, but all the other staff don't really like her. Oh, something I want to mention that happened a while back that I kind of skipped over. But Cavex is just an awesome guy all around. Because you find out on the trip back between Mars and Luna that when he finds out that Lyria can barely read, he's like, "What? I'm going to teach you every day after breakfast." And he's just he just seems like a genuinely good dude.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that already, though.
We did, yeah. I mean, the Telemonists are all pretty awesome, except for
Yeah.
Daxo's a bit of a prick, but he's an awesome prick.
And his mum's a bit. I mean, to be fair, we only call them pricks because they acted rashly under pressure.
Under pressure, yeah. So what happens? Anyway, so it goes on this sort of thing back and forth. You get to know a little bit more about Ephraim's crew and some of the prep work they're doing. Volga, his obsidian, by the way, is awesome.
Volga is great.
So it's a female obsidian that he found, working as a freight hauler or dock worker on Earth, and he offered to take her, and she.
Volga and Ephraim are great examples, I think, for it's gonna sound a bit, but whatever. Of minority characters played perfectly. That is to say, you know how we always, whenever we're like, an example of a really awesome female action star, and we always go to Sigourney Weaver. Obsidian Girl, really fucking awesome, and doesn't feel like they're going, oh, woman power. No, she's just fucking awesome.
Yeah,
and she does the job well. And the same thing with like, you don't often see many people playing gay characters which don't super accentuate the fact that they are gay. Like, you forget that he's gay, and he's just a fucking awesome dude. Like, that's how you fucking do it.
I actually was about to say that. Like, I quite frequently forget Ephraim's gay. But
and sorry if I said that in a weird way. I was trying not to step on toes or be too much of not stepping on toes, because that is.
I know what you mean, though. Like, it's just like it's. I think quite often in a lot of media, especially these days, what they end up doing wrong is they take that one aspect of their character, like he's gay, and that's his entire personality.
Yeah.
Whereas Ephraim has he's written like a human being. Like, that's one part of him, but then he's got, his past, his bitterness towards the Rising, the crew that he works with.
Drug abuse is far more of an issue.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I think like multiple times when it starts one of his chapters, he's just sitting there pounding back vodka and pills.
Yeah, he's just like, every other sentence starts with, and I had another Zoladone.
Yeah, which is the emotional dulling medicine that we talked about last time.
Yeah.
If people don't remember. But yeah, he's complex character. I also think the one thing, this ties into the fact that I keep forgetting Ephraim's gay. I keep thinking that they're going to try to do some kind of like a romantic thing between
Holiday.
No, him and
with him and
Volga.
Volga.
But the thing is, like, but it's also a very good example of like a platonic male and female friendship.
Yeah.
Whereas they're just crew. They're just loyal to each other.
I kind of see Ephraim as more of a father figure to Volga. Maybe because of the way that the guy acted her voice. But also the fact that, like, when she got caught later, she was at the zoo.
Yeah.
She was being sad, so she went to the zoo.
There's actually a really funny bit when Ephraim's talking about the syndicate job to the rest of his crew. And everyone, like, what is it? Dano, the Red, has spent all his money on, like, jewels and expensive cigarettes and shit.
Yeah.
The Green that he has with him has, like, a penthouse apartment and a mortgage that's going to bankrupt her in a few months. And then you get to Volga, and she's just like, they're like, how much of your share do you have left? And she's like, all of it. And he's like, what? All of it? From all our jobs? And she's like, well, I eat more than you little people, and I like going to the zoo. I go in the day when the tickets are cheaper. And it's just like, it's so adorable.
It's so endearing, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but Volga's awesome. Anyway, so, the two of them have a bit of a dynamic there, and I really, really enjoy Volga's character. But yeah, so it finally comes time for the job. And what happens is, well, so it starts with Lyria's perspective, because she's at like a little bit of a gala, a little bit of a reception.
Before that. So Philippe approaches Lyria and they're having what are normal meetups. And
oh, you're right.
They start talking about the pendant that Philippe keeps clutching at.
So he reveals that it was, and this is the truth, is that it was actually something that Trig gave him.
Well, that wasn't, but sorry.
Well, I'm getting to that. The pendant is something that Trig gave him, but he talks to some black market like weapons tech guy and has him make a perfect replica of the pendant that, you know, is actually a device they're going to use to pull off the job. And through the conversations and the bonding that he's had with Lyria, he gets her to take the pendant, to lighten her load, to lessen her burdens, as a sign that of their friendship. And she does end up accepting it because, you know, like it's been established so far in the book, she's lonely, she feels isolated. This is like, in her mind, her only friend in the whole city.
Basically how you indoctrinate someone into a cult.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, it's also how like a lot of abusive relationships start, because if one person is completely isolated, they don't have a whole lot of friends, it's very easy for them to be convinced that if I lose this one other person, there's nothing else I can do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ephraim is being an absolute piece of shit here, which is probably why he has to keep popping the pills to keep his guilt, you know, out of the picture. Anyway, so now it's the Lyria chapter. There's some kind of a fancy event, some political event going on.
Quicksilver's birthday.
Yeah, they're all in tuxedos at the estate with all the fancy golds and silvers and people, you know,
and robots.
Yeah, that's the other detail, because I remember one thing that is talked about in the early books is how much Augustus is afraid of robots and how like their technology could eclipse, you know, and replace humans, and so they're really, really heavily restricted. And one of Quicksilver's motives in the first books is he wants innovative technology, he wants to do automation and robots and stuff. And something they kind of mention offhand several times in the book is like the Red Mines being taken over and done exclusively by robots, so they don't need to send people down there. And now there are robots going around at these mansions and stuff. So it's an interesting subplot. I'm wondering how they'll play out further into the other books. Anyway, Lyria has a bit of a confrontation with Pax, Darrow's son, because he's like trying to bond with her a little bit, just chat, and she tries to be polite until he says he annoys her in some way by asking about her family or something like that.
He says he's half red.
Yeah, he starts pissing her off by asking what it was like in the mines.
No, he says bloody damn.
Or something.
That's the thing.
There's a few things where and she sees it as, you know, you've been raised in this palace, you know, even if your dad was born a red, he's a fucking gold now, and you're just as gold as him. And so she basically shouts in the kid's face.
Yeah.
And then as they're leaving, she's just in her mind going like, oh, fuck, I just lost my job. You know, the kid's going to run and tell his mom. Never gets that far, though, because on the shuttle ride where she's there with Cavix and all the rest of them, the little pendant that he gave her pops up into a disc, spraying gas everywhere, and then the whole shuttle gets ripped out of the sky.
Yep.
From Ephraim's perspective now, they bust into the ship, you know, most people are knocked out, and it turns out that the job they took was to kidnap the kids, Severo's oldest daughter and Darrow's son. And so they pull him out, and he is supposed to like just kill Lyria here because she's a loose end, and also he knows that they'll torture her because they're going to think that she's the one that did this, which technically she did, but not, you know, on her own.
I mean, obviously it happened for the sake of the plot, but why would the royalty be in the same shuttle as the servants?
I think they say there are different compartments. It's like
Yeah, they say there's two compartments, but like, you don't think it's the fucking queen.
Well, they do say the sovereign is in a different shuttle. Like her and Victra go off one way.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, so the kids are just going back with the Telemonuses to the Telemonus estate and to like spend the week by the lake or something like that. They're visiting Uncle Cavix basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, they bust in there, try to take it out. Ephraim didn't take the no emotion pills this time, and so he's having a hard time shooting Lyria. Finally pulls the trigger, and he didn't even turn the safety off. And then he's like, no, I can't go through that again. And so he doesn't shoot her. He takes her. Dano, the Red, confronts him about it, like, as they're trying to leave. And he's like, just get the fuck out of my way. And that buys enough time for Cavix to... He's been gassed. The shuttle has crashed. But Cavix out Telemonus just will not go down. He stands up and is, like, coming after them. He's partially unconscious, so he fumbles and can't get his weapon out. So he just runs forward and fucking caves Dano's head in with one fist.
Well, no, I think it was like he picks him up and then just overhead hurls him into something.
He does something that like caves his head in and like instantly kills him. And that's when Volga comes out and shoots Cavix in the side there.
Yep.
And Lyria is obviously heartbroken because no, they shot Cavix. So they get away. Dano's fucking dead. He throws Lyria in the trunk. They transfer everything over to there's some like abandoned building that they go into where they remove any tracers that the kids have on them quickly, and then they throw them in the back of another transport, burn the lab that they were just in, and then fly off to meet up with the Duke of Hands to turn over the kids. This meeting goes pretty badly because they turn over the kids. The syndicate guy heavily implies he wants Ephraim to work for him. Volga makes...
one way or another.
Yeah, there's a bit of a sexual tension there too, at least on one side. Volga makes the mistake of asking what's going to happen to the kids, which is probably a big no-no. You don't want to have a conscience when you're talking to people like that.
No.
And then I can't remember what order exactly things happen in, but the Duke of Hands reveals that part of his crew betrayed him. So, like, apparently...
So, first off, he starts slapping the shit out of Pax.
That does happen. Yeah, this is where you get to see that there's some real intense, like, bitterness or trauma or something going on with the Duke of Hands. Because he starts backhanding the shit out of Pax and going, like, weep, weep. Because he wants it. He's, like, apparently he's probably...
Make it sound like a Pokemon abusing, like, weep, weep.
Yeah. I mean, and I think Ephraim, like, speculates that he was, like, the personal plaything of some rich gold. And so there's definitely some trauma there. But yes, so then they reveal that both Dano and the Green that was working with Ephraim betrayed him. With Dano, the Obsidian that worked for the Duke of Hands had to approach him and give him an offer, and he betrayed him. But with the Green, she came to them and was like, hey, I'll tell you everything. It's whatever you want to know. And she gets dragged in front of them, like, with the shit kicked out of her. Because they don't like snitches. And
they're gonna kill him, but then go on.
Well, they do kill her.
Well, yeah, I was gonna let you build up to it.
Okay, sorry. They're like, you can choose the way she dies, and Ephraim eventually just goes, just let her go. And then the Duke's like, oh, you heard him, let her go. And so they throw her off the building.
Yeah.
Which, would that really kill somebody on the moon? Like, that's... The gravity's like 1/6 or less of Earth. It'd be a slow fall. Maybe if he threw her like straight down.
Yeah, to be fair, anything that he put like downwards is gonna majorly add to it. Also, it's green, so her body's probably about as frail as they fucking come.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think only the pinks are said to be like more brittle.
Yeah. And they
Anyways,
can also feel more, which is another thing that's super creepy.
yeah, so that happens, and then something falls over, and oh no, Lyria got out of the car, and she was spying on them, and then she goes running off as some obsidians go chasing her. And then one of the obsidians comes back, and it turns out that she ducked down like a ventilation duct or something like that, and they couldn't fit because the obsidians are fucking rhinos. And tense moment, but Ephraim manages to get out of there with Volga without issue. Then it cuts to Lyria and her like existential crisis as she's like wandering the lower reaches of the moon, trying to get back and figure out what she's going to do. Eventually, she has Ephraim's pistol, by the way, his awesome pistol.
So she goes through a bunch of people. Sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to pick up the pace.
Okay.
Yeah, so she eventually comes to the conclusion that no, for her nephew's sake, she's got to go back. She's got to make this right. She's got to do whatever she can to help them. And so she goes to a guard checkpoint, at which point, she tells everything like an hour or so later. Holiday shows up in badass fashion, like puts her in a straitjacket with a mouth guard in, and then just takes her out and tells everyone else, no one saw anything, no one heard anything, this is confidential, it's treason if you say anything. They load her in the shuttle and then head back to the palace, which I love the fact that the gold aristocrats still maintain a private army, because as they're going back, they hear over the comms like demands, because there are Ripwings, the fighters that come down over the moon, trying to stop them. And it turns out Victra has found out, because they stole her daughter, she's like, give me that red terrorist. And so she sends like a squadron of fighters after her. She comes down in what they describe as maternity combat armor, because Victra's like 8 months pregnant.
Yep.
But she's stopped with the Telemanus forces that, repel hers, and then Lyria gets taken to the Citadel. At which point, Kavix's wife and Daxo and Theodora all like interrogate Lyria. They think that she's part of the Red Hand, or that she's been recruited by the Society, and it turns out that they still have some of those like truth scorpion things.
With Pit Piper in them.
Yeah, and she is perfectly honest with them, but they're still going to try and torture her to be sure. At which point, Mustang arrives in the scene, is like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Get out of here. I want to talk to her myself. And
Holiday stays.
Yeah, Holiday stays behind. Mustang manages to... Lyria manages to convince Mustang that she actually is sincere. She didn't know about any of this, and she really wants to help. And so, using all this info that she gives, they manage to, piece together roughly where she was. And when she tells him about the pistol, Holiday realizes that it was Ephraim that did this, because she knows him, and obviously he's her brother-in-law. And they confront Ephraim. So Ephraim was planning to escape the planet on a chartered flight with Volga. He pisses off Volga. They get into a little bit of an altercation. Volga doesn't like that they kidnap children. She thinks it makes them monsters. Volga leaves. Ephraim goes to the plane by himself. And that's where Holiday and Lyria confront him. And they basically convince him that he has to make this right, and that he has to go and get the kids back, because they have Volga. They've captured her, and he manages to negotiate like a pardon
As
for
in,
her.
the Sovereign has Volga, not the Syndicate.
Yeah, the Sovereign has her, and has her in a prison cell. Yeah, I'm truncating quite a bit here. But yes, so he manages to, through deception and seduction, convince the Duke of Hands that he wants to work for him.
No, sorry, I thought you...
And, after he's let his guard down, he grabs his pistol, beats the shit out of the guy, and gets him to bring him to the children.
That was a very fun scene. I'm sorry,
It was. I wish I would go into more detail, but...
Well, the one thing that is key though is that he cuts his hand off.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He does do that.
And that's the part where they're like, oh, by the way, all pinks are... Their biology means that they have far more receptors, so they can feel everything, including pain, a lot more vividly.
Yeah, which again is, like we were saying, a little bit more... It just makes everything even more fucked up.
It is a little bit.
Anyway, they rescue the kids. The kids don't... I mean, Severo's daughter especially doesn't trust this guy at all.
Well, they would have seen him.
Yeah, and so they manage to... They managed to escape on the private yacht of the Duke of Hands, and Ephraim's like bleeding out because he's been shot, but he manages to keep the thing piloted. He's talking to Holiday and Mustang as they go, and then turns out the shuttle has a kill switch. The queen of the syndicate takes over, talks to them on the comm, and is like, "Yep, no, fuck you, you're coming back. You've got something of mine." The shuttle turns around, and Ephraim kind of improvises an EMP bomb to crash the shuttle instead of actually going back.
It's not an EMP bomb. It's a pile of frag grenades next to the engine.
It was... He knocked out the engine somehow. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Some kind of...
Real fucking cowboy fashion, yeah.
Yeah. He has some like really good line to Pax at the end there too.
Yeah.
When the thing's about to blow up, because he's a little bit manic and crazy from blood loss at that point.
Yeah. He's like 10, 9, brace for impact, and then the two children are like, oh fuck.
Yeah. And and that's where Ephraim's and Lyria's stories kind of conclude. Oh no, Lyria has one big thing that happens at the end. She, from cooperating, it's revealed she's going to need to testify and everything like that, so they're going to keep her basically secluded in the Citadel. She goes into a room, finds out Kavix has lived, doesn't know how healthy he is, but she knows he's alive, goes to take a shower in her room, is thinking about all this, and a brown woman comes out as she's leaving the shower and says something along the line of, House Barca sends its regards, and then she gets injected. And it's not clear whether or not she gets knocked out or killed. But she's... As we end the book...
I would assume knocked out.
Yeah. As we end the book, where our four characters are, Lysander is heading towards the core with the Moon Lords. Darrow is heading towards Mercury to help out what's left of his army and hopefully stop... the Ash Lord's daughter.
Aja Grimace?
Aja's dead. It's her sister. It starts with I think it also
Aja.
starts.
It's very similar.
It's a similar name, yeah.
Yeah.
Ephraim is crashing with the kids in the shuttle.
Oh, I see. I was like, I thought you meant okay, crashing, as in like.
No, he's
chilling
not,
out.
No.
They're having some pop.
Oh, I
and
thought with crashing, I thought you were going for like him coming off of a drug binge or something. No, and Lyria is either dead or sedated and being kidnapped by Victra.
Yeah.
So
supposedly,
we don't. It's cliffhangers all around. But I'm excited for the next book. I have read the first couple chapters of it, which were Darrow and Lysander, and they were interesting so far.
And now I can start reading it.
Yep. So and I can start it over and resume. But yeah, no, there were a lot of differences. There were things I liked and disliked compared to the first trilogy. Do we want to let's do some? I think from my end.
I think previously we've agreed that the first book was the best, then the second book, then the third book. Where do you place Iron Gold?
I would place Iron Gold
definitely below Red Rising.
Yes, I'd put it. So if we're going Red Rising's in first, Golden Sun's in second, I would put this one in third above Morning Star.
Okay. Fair. I think for the time being, I mean, maybe I will change my opinion later because
there are more books.
I don't know. I really don't like them doing Darrow dirty that bad.
Yeah.
And I thought the Lysander bit was boring. I'm gonna put it fourth. In order now. It's getting unfortunately slowly worse. So surely we can only get better with the next book.
If I will say, if Lysander's chapter was probably voiced a little bit better and was a little more interesting, it may have been a close contender for second place in my ranking. And I do. I don't know. I'm. You're right. If with the Darrow bits, if they don't have him have a redemption arc, kind of in the fifth book, then my opinion might change and it might go lower. But that's where it is. But yeah, overall, I think I liked adding the new perspectives and having people other than Darrow. So you get to see more of what's going on in the wider world.
Yes, I agree. It was refreshing to see Darrow painted as the Rising painted as the villains, particularly by Lysander. Yeah. How many moons out of 10?
How many moons out of 10?
How many moons would you burn for this book?
I'm trying not to be biased because I love the series overall, but I think I'd confidently still give it a 7.
Okay, I would go a flat 5.
I was gonna say 6.5 at first, but I'm sticking with my 7.
Okay, cool.
What about you? Oh, you already gave yours.
So yes, I go with 5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's really not much else to say about
5
this.
dead Auraths out of a family.
Oh, Valia. The Minotaur is such a fucking badass.
No, not Aurath. Fuck.
Who are you thinking of?
Romulus's family.
Ra. Ra.
Aura.
Yeah, I love the names. I love the names the Golds have in these series. Anyway. All right, that's going to be the end of our full book discussion review thing of Iron Gold. We're going to be picking up, immediately probably going to be going into the 5th one, so expect another one of these, hopefully not too long into the future.
In a couple of weeks.
Yeah, at the rate we go through these, yeah. All right, that's going to be it. Have a good one. Thanks for listening, and you'll hear from us again soon.
Bye!